I'm really into uncomfortable silences. I've spent about 20 years very deeply experiencing discomfort in silence alone. I find these times to be really important to me. I think taking time away from our devices, processing for ourselves, and basically shutting down the noise that we're constantly ingesting from the marketplace is very important. So the one thing we really do want is freshness in our lives. I think freshness provides an opportunity to open our minds, relax a little bit, and basically get away from the incessant messaging that we're not good enough. I think unconsciously, or maybe consciously, many of the what would you call them? Industries, basically, they kind of like promote this idea that there's something wrong with you, eventually you'll fix it, and then you'll have like a whole new credential available to you. So basically, we have a juxtaposition of simple freshness, and then you have this idea of a promise that pop meditation is making. So really underlying this is dissociation practice. We're all familiar with it. Drinking, drugs, going to yoga obsessively, riding our bike, buying new clothes. These are just ways we dissociate from the freshness of the moment. And I think, we do that for really good reasons. We have billions of years programmed into our bodies of being predated upon, wars, famines, family strife, and it's been a very disturbing trial for many of us. So of course we're going to want to adopt a whole new self-image, and some of that can be basically the costuming is so easily purchased in the marketplace. That could be, having a friend do a lens flare picture of you looking very peaceful, or that could be buying a new meditation cushion or buying maybe some new apps, but never sitting. Never actually experiencing that idle relaxation where you're not processing other people's noise. So we have a kind of like an interesting juxtaposition going on here. We feel like something's missing. We look to the marketplace to find a solution to replace what's missing. And then we get paralyzed in the process because fundamentally that's a conflictual way to orient ourselves. And then, of course, we have even more extravagant messaging of living our best lives. And oftentimes we don't take the time to examine who it is that's telling us to live that best life. What is their interest in helping us live that best life? Is it money? Are they really caring about our well-being? It's hard to determine that sometimes. There's many applications out there that encourage people to meditate. I think there are wonderful opportunities, and I think the methodologies that they support are ancient and oftentimes very helpful for people. But I think there's a danger there because then we start supplanting the application formula with our actual practice of just being ourselves in sort of like an unstructured way. So, being ourselves in an unstructured way, we're going to get into a situation where we start coming into contact with these unconscious motives to maybe trip ourselves up or come into contact with our deep feelings of deficit that are easily replaced by the components that the marketing systems are so efficiently marketing to us. And so these are tough times for many of us because our brain is structured by language. The neuroplasticity of the brain is somewhat structured by language itself, and then it structures our cognitive system and what floats into conscious awareness. So you can be doing a browsing session to buy a ticket to Bali for your next yoga retreat, and then you'll be bombarded with thousands of messages that are very precisely aimed to remind you that there's a deficit that can be filled by an application or by a specific meditation methodology. So the irony here is that doing nothing it's espoused by the marketing industry, the productivity industry. A lot of the people I know in technology have this sort of fantasy of doing nothing. They're going to go somewhere. But to me, that's just another thing to add to your to-do list. It's like, oh, when can I... Yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing that nothing in the south of France, but I have to earn $20,000 to get there, so I'll put that on the list. And eventually, then we're going to get to the south of France and we're going to do nothing super hard. So this is part of, this is the juxtaposition we're dealing with. It's like a fundamental conflict. The admonition to be happy that capital imposes on the marketplace and upon us, because our mind is structured linguistically around capital to some degree. And it's just not a black and white issue. It's a very bizarre cocktail of sort of Eastern imported meditation methodologies and then consumerism on the other hand, where we're taught that life is a good versus evil, and many of the meditation methodologies don't really have that subtext to them. So there's a really precise definition I want to make tonight, and that's, I don't see meditation as a preventative issue. It's not a preventative product. To me, it's a recovery product. And this whole talk is framed about that because I think it's really important to delineate that. Because if it's preventative, that means eventually, you're going to run into a position where XYZ may help you. But if it's a recovery methodology, then to me, that means you're recovering to something that's already there all the time with you. It can't be purchased. It's unstructured, and it's actually your fundament. So you're returning to yourself. And then when we're in this state of unstructured, non-distracted awareness, oftentimes we do experience problem solving, healing, kindness, all the things that are espoused by the market. But for us, it's really hard to get to that point where we're actually sitting. And then when we do start sitting, we do realize that, oh my gosh, it's not the stimulus out there that I'm so terrified of, it's my own mind. It's my own mind, it's my amygdala, it's like the limbic system, these primitive ways we organize reality where we're constantly in a state where something out there is threatening, I can't see it, but I know it's out to get me. And oftentimes that's just our mind. It's doing its job. We're being reduced to basically our more primitive minds. And what we want to do is get to these capacities espoused by the marketing sphere. And so, am I making promises? I kind of am, because I do think that if you do return to unstructured awareness, you will find that you have a regal attitude, and you can actually start imposing laws and taking care of your inner realm. And by laws, you start sussing out where the trouble is, and then you create micro-methodologies to take care of that. So we can have a regal attitude with ourselves. And then along with that regal attitude, we begin to tolerate anxiety and intensity. And I think given the climate change issues, political problems that we're all seeing, tolerating anxiety and intensity is a superpower. We're no longer children, and we can't just check out because things are too intense and invest in neurosis. This is a time where we can engage politically and use our own awareness, our own tolerance for our own adult intensity, and stop just giving in to these more primal features of the mind. We're no longer in the wild, so to speak. So let's continue to look when we're sitting, when we're out in public, when we're at Whole Foods in the parking lot, freaking out because someone cut us off. Is there a real threat in this moment? Do I need to buy into the narrative that my primitive brain is providing? So this is the task of integrating the animal and the imaginal. Humans are so interesting that way. And then this guy, we all know our certain friends or ourselves in many cases who have adopted a cultural habit instead of actually doing the personal work with intensity and connecting to ourselves. So at the end point, I encourage everyone to meditate. It doesn't have to be with an app, and it doesn't have to be the way the market tells you to do it. It's going to give you confidence to fully participate. It's going to point out the areas of your life where you actually use conflict as a form of entertainment instead of engaging in your immediate experience. I don't think marketers are going to tell you to fully engage with your immediate experience because there's a lot of disturbance there. And so the real goal to me of meditation is to awake from the trance of these primal drives, the display of the mind, the juxtaposition on reality, and basically return to a sustainable way to be aware of your immediate experience without checking out and dissociating into purchasing or not being engaged politically and environmentally. We can look to ourselves for that gravitas of kindness, tolerance, and every time we get freaked out, pissed off, use that as a prompt to wake yourself up out of this trance of primally organizing reality as a threat. It's not always a threat. Usually the threat is in our minds. So thank you for listening to that.